Well, hello. JayCLTWXEAS here. That's the first time I've ever given a greeting out of the hundreds of other videos that I have, but hello anyway. So, as you can see here, and as you can also see by my shadow there, but just as you can see here, we got all these water radios up front, along with that stuff related to no water radio, and this here being completely related to no water radio. And as for all these water radios that you're seeing right here, right now, chances are, at least for my collection, you may have seen them, you may have not seen them, or you haven't even seen them at all. And so, for the first time ever on my channel, I'm going to be doing a whole video where I discuss my collection of the water radios that I have, well, as of October 29th of 2024. And as I go on with this video, I'm going to be discussing on what, where, and when I own my water radios, but also adding this to how I use them for no water radio stations, along with some additional information, if needed, that goes into how I first owned each one, even for ones that you're not seeing here right now. And as I go on with this video, and as I go through my collection of water radios that you're seeing here, I'm going to be going through, starting off on this bottom fourth row of the shelf. I'm going to be going from here to here to here to here to here, and then off on this radio. And again, also adding some additional information to some other water radios that I've owned. So, might as well start it from the bottom, just like Drake said about a song. But anyway, I'm going to start off with this very radio here, right at the bottom shelf, and start off on what water radios I own. So, this radio here, in which I have my finger at, is, as you can see, the Emerson EWR850 water radio. And this water radio here, along with these two others next to it on this row of the shelf, are what I consider to be 1050 hertz radios. Basically radios that go off for an alert if they sense this tone for alerts.
Locally heavy rainfall. Flood watch in effect from late Wednesday night through Friday.
Yeah, so that's what this water radio and also these two others are. And that's also the kind of thought that I had when I had purchased this in Christmas of 2021, which was around the time that I was getting myself interest into no water radio and also collecting radios. Now at the time it wasn't too many water radios, so it was only a select couple compared to the amount that I have now. But yeah, at the time I was getting myself into collecting water radios, and around Christmas of 2021, this was it here for this Emerson EWR850. Now, as you can see, this is the silver version, but I actually originally at the time wanted a black version of this radio. But as I purchased this on eBay during that time, the silver one was the only one that there was, so this is what I went with, and so I have it here. But yeah, got this here. And so we go to the radio that's next to it, the RadioShack 12-247, specifically the 12-247B, and also specifically my second 12-247B that I've owned. And I'll talk on the first one. By the way, I had a first 12-247B later on. But before we get into why I don't own that and why I own this, we're going to get into how this 12-247B, my second one, sounds in terms of its speaker quality.
Again at 7 p.m. at the Charlotte Airport. It was 66 degrees and mostly cloudy. Now for the official National Weather Service forecast for the Piedmont of the Carolinas, including Charlotte and vicinity. Tonight, partly cloudy until...
Yeah, pretty decent speaker on this 12-247B. But as for my first 12-247B that I owned previously before this one, the opposite. And I say that because my first 12-247B that I'd previously owned before this one had a low speaker. Basically, kind of speaker that, well, you really wouldn't hear too much out of it. So, let's say if all of these water radios were to go off on orange with all their beeps and burps and boops and all that, with their alert tones. If all that were to happen, and this radio, well, the first 12-247B that I owned, if that were to go off on words just as all that's happening with my other radios, there's a good chance that you would not hear that 12-247B if it were to go off on a word, because if it's, well, it's a little speaker, which again, you wouldn't really hear too much out of. As a matter of fact, you really have to be around a nearby area or nearby spot just to hear anything. But yeah, that was the case with my first 12-247B, which again I had owned before this one. And as for one, I owned both my first and second, as I have here, 12-247Bs. The first one that I owned was in January of 2022. Which, as I said about that radio, was around the time that I'd been getting myself into collecting water radios. Though I'd say 2022 would be the best year, or the year that I've gotten the most water radios. As will go on as this video goes, but anyway. The first 12-247B in January 2022. And between that point to 2 years and 2 months past that, to April of 2024, would be around the time that I would be using it. It would also be by April of 2024 that I would stop using that 12-247B, that'd be my first one, to replace it with this second 12-247B that I have right here. And this 12-247B in particular, I'd bought from a water radio enthusiast in the name of The Radio Enthusiast. And I say thanks to him for him selling his 12-247B with a decent speaker. Because as for my first 12-247B with its low speaker, that you have to be in a nearby spot just to hear anything, let's say that I just couldn't deal with that for much longer. Yeah, goodbye, original 247B. You already had a weak heart with your speaker anyway. This 247B will be taking your throne permanently. So this here is what I got with the better speaker. I'm glad for it. But going on with the radios here. Next up is the RadioShack 12-240. And this here I purchased in June of 2022. And similarly to how I purchased my second 12-247B from a water radio enthusiast, this here I also purchased from a water radio enthusiast in the name of South Missouri Sirens. And this would also be the same user that I would purchase for this radio that I'll get to later as well. So yeah, these two radios here right next to each other I'd bought from two water radio enthusiasts. And as I said, I'd purchased this in June of 2022. Now, going up to here, to the Midland WR-30. This radio I got as a replacement to this. Its clone, the Midland 74-10. And I have a whole nearly 1 hour long video where I talk about all the differences that both the Midland WR-30 and 74-10 have. Well, they're slight differences really. But basically all I just really need to know is that these two water radios are the same water radio, but that they both have different model names along with slight differences in terms of functionality and features. And as I said, I had purchased my WR-30 to replace my 74-10. And that's for the reasons that I'll get into my 74-10 on why I had this replaced with a clone of it. Start off here. And these reasons here go along some issues that I've had with this 74-10. Well, at least my 74-10 that I'm holding right now. So, some of the issues that I had with my 74-10 were its low speaker, which I did talk about on my experience with my first RadioShack 12-247B. And as for my Midland 74-10, that issue would go to this. So, yeah, that issue that I had with this kind of low speaker that you would have to be in a nearby spot just to really hear anything. But yeah, that's one issue with my 74-10. Another one would be something that the 74-10 as a radio model has a flaw of. That being a flaw with its clock. So we'll pretend this is the 74-10 for a moment, since I don't have this on. So this here is the clock for the 74-10. Again, we're pretending this is the 74-10, not its other clone. But yeah, this is the clock here on it. And so the flaw in this is where its clock, after a certain period of time of it being set, would freeze or lag for a certain period of time. I'll put in a video clip where I explain this further on the flaw with the 74-10's clock and its freezing lag. So like, let's say, hypothetically speaking, if I had set the 74 to 10 and WR30 to something like 1:15 p.m. It'll be an hour past that, and while the WR30 would say the correct time to 21 p.m., the 74 to 10 would be behind and say something like 1:31 p.m. or 1:49 p.m. or 2:04 p.m. or some other kind of time that would be behind the correct time that the WR30 would be displaying otherwise. Yeah, so that's how the fault is on Midland 74 to 10s. And what I know, it's not just my model that has it, but just any model of any 74 to 10 can have it. But yeah, that's one issue with my 74 to 10 that got me to replace it with the WR30, but I'll get into some others. Another one is how with this scroll wheel here, how just like how the 74 to 10's clock would lack, the scroll wheel, as I would move it, would also lag randomly at times. Oh, and would you look at that, it just went backward. Oh, now it just freezed. Oh, just went backward and backward again. Oh, just glitched there. Oh, now it just glitched again. And yeah, those issues with my 74 to 10 for the low speaker, along with the lagging glitchy scroll wheel, along with the time freezing flaw that goes into any model of the 74 to 10, at least for this, or why I switched from my 74 to 10 to my WR30. But I'll also get into, well, alongside why I switched from how long I've been using both my 74 to 10 and the WR30. So for my 74 to 10, this would actually be my very first water radio that I would own. And this I first owned in April of 2020. There wouldn't be until 3 months after that, to July of that year, that I would actually use it, because for this 74 to 10, obviously it got shipped with the radio, but it didn't get shipped with any kind of adapter that supplies this voltage. So as a result of that, in July would be when I get an aftermarket adapter that goes with that kind of voltage, that would go to where I can actually use my 74 to 10. And between that point of July of 2020, when I got the adapter and started using this, between July of 2020 to February of 2021 would be the period in which I'd be using my 74 to 10 for a couple of months during that time. So February of 2021 would also be the same time that I would also get the WR30. And as I said earlier, I got my WR30 to replace the 74 to 10. So as a result of that, by February of 2021 would be when I'd stop using my 74 to 10 to switch with my WR30. And unlike the few months that I had with my 74 to 10, from July of 2020 to February of 2021, from February of 2021 to 3 years past that, over 3 years past that, to October of 2024, that makes it over 3 years that I've been owning my WR-30 for. Maybe for about as long as I could have owned my 74-10 if it weren't for the aforementioned issues that I've said on it. But that never ended up being the case. And so, while this WR-30 here has been treating me good for 3 years now, and hopefully will continue to be, this 74-10, well, at least my 74-10, the one I'm holding now, for all its issues that it's given me, and also for me only using it for just a few months as a result before replacing it with its clone, it's best if it was just thrown off. But continuing on with my collection here, so this here, the Midland WR-120, specifically the EZ model. Now, even if you may not be into water radios in the same way I am, by the way, no shame if you are that person, there's a good chance that you have seen this water radio before, at least once. And it also being a water radio that I'd say most water radio enthusiasts have. And, well, I'm just about one of them, with the WR-120 EZ. And this I owned in January of 2022. So just about the same month that I would also first have my first RadioShack 12-247B. Next here is the Midland WR-400. And I don't know if this really matters with WR-400 versions, but for what I have here, it's the version 3, if you're into that. But if not, then just know that this is a Midland WR-400 and that I have it here. And that I've owned it since October of 2020. And 2020 also being my very first year that I would fully get into the interest of no water radio. So, if there's any reason as to why I got this Midland 74-10, even with its issues, as my first water radio, this is why. And in 2020, this would actually be my second water radio. So I'd be using this around the time that I'd also been using my 74-10 in that year. But yeah, the WR-400 I'd owned in October of 2020. And 4 years past that, in the same month of October, still owned the water radio in the year of 2024. 4 years past the time that, or 4 years past the year that I first owned this. Now going up here.
Wait, hang on. We gotta go back. There's something I also say on the WR-400 that I can't continue on with this video without saying it here.
Oh, and just to add on here, the WR-400 that I have here, it's connected to this strobe light here, that being this model that will be listed. And this strobe light I got in 2022. So around the time I had my radio buying phase in. Yeah, that's the strobe lights that's connected to the WR400. They probably have to replace it with batteries at some point because I've just been keeping those same AAA batteries in there for the 2 years that I first owned this. So at some point I should replace them. If I know, I should. But yeah, my strobe light to my WR400. Now going up here to the RadioShack 12-991. So as for this water radio, along with 3 others that I'll mention, this I got for my birthday in March of 2022. By the way, my birth date is in March of 2022. Specifically March 20th. So for me to get this water radio along with 3 others for that occasion, definitely a good birthday present for what it got me in terms of water radios. The RadioShack 12-250. Now I'm not entirely sure if I'd own this in either late 2021 or early 2022, but as this video will be edited, I'll put in some text here. If by the time I'm editing this, I'll actually know when I first had this. But at least just for saying this now, it was between late 2021 to early 2022 that I first owned this RadioShack 12-250. But again, I have a text here in case I don't have it right already as to when I first owned this. Now, the RadioShack 12-249. This actually being the predecessor to the RadioShack 12-250 right next to it. And this I first owned in either April or May of 2022. Oh, and I may also add that this is also the No Water Radio logo version of it, which to this kind of version doesn't really add in anything to this particular model whatsoever, other than just this logo for show. But going up here to the Recom R1650, specifically the R1650C. I owned this in February of 2022. And I'd mentioned this earlier, but I say that the past couple of water radios that for the past couple of water radios that I've mentioned here, along with some other ones I'll mention later, I first owned in 2022. And I say that because, as I also said earlier, 2022 would be the year that I would really get myself into buying water radio after radio. So kind of a phase that I had for a couple of months, particularly around the earlier to mid parts of 2022, at least just within 2022, though this also includes late 2021 as well, but 2022 especially would be when I would have my own phase of buying water radio after water radio. So don't be surprised if I mention another water radio that I owned in 2022, such as the RadioShack 12-262, specifically model year 2006, alongside the other model year versions of 2007 and 2008. This I first owned in January of 2022, and I mentioned this a while earlier, but just like with this water radio here, the RadioShack 12-240, I'd purchased both this water radio and this radio from, putting this name again, water radio enthusiast South Missouri Sirens. And so from that enthusiast, I bought his radio that he used to have. This one in January of 2022, and for this one, June of that year. Now going over to the AwardWorks EAR10, specifically the EAR10WH, with the WH as in white. Alongside there also being a black version that's more known. Now, just like all the other water radios, not everyone, but some that I've mentioned that I've owned since 2022, this would be no exception. And this I owned in Christmas of 2022. Now with that being said, this was after I had my phase of buying water radio after water radio in that year. So by the time I bought this, that phase had been over. And so, similarly to how I bought this and this water radio from one water radio enthusiast, along with that from another, this I also bought from a water radio enthusiast in the name of East NorCar WX. And I say thank you to East NorCar WX for this radio, South Missouri Sirens for this radio, and the radio enthusiast, that's the name, for this radio, because out of the 4 of 17 water radios that I currently own that are right here, 4 of those radios I would purchase from water radio enthusiasts, that being 3 of them. Whereas the other 13 I'd purchased myself. Alright, so we've gotten through the desktop radios for what I currently own here. Now we're going up to another kind of shelf alongside this 4-road one. That being this hard plastic shelf. And 2, the RadioShack 12-254. Now, even if you aren't really familiar with my channel too much, you may have at least seen at least one video where I used this radio to receive one station for something. And that's because I actually like this water radio, and so across all the hundreds of videos that are up on my channel, this is my top used water radio. And actually the one that I would consider my favorites. Though it does mean I don't have other favorites as well. Like this, and that, and this, and also that I'll mention later on, but really this is just the one that I use most. And you really know that if you were to just take a look at my videos. You don't even have to watch them, but you can just take a look at my channel and see on all the hundreds of videos that I have with this one water radio here, which by the way looks like a telephone. And so, to anybody that has viewed all my videos with this radio, or even viewed any of my other videos with any radio, any of the other water radios I have here, thank you for that. But anyway, aside from that, the RadioShack 12-254, and I've mentioned this as I was talking on the 12-991 with how I purchased this on my birthday, March of 2022. But this I would also purchase in March of 2022. in March of 2022 for my birthday. Along with these two other ones. And as I said, for what I got out of my birthday in 2022, for this, that, and that, definitely good presents it got me. But that can also go to any Christmas presents with this RadioShack 12-259. And this being the successor to the 12-254. Though this specific model that I have here is the beige version and model year 2004. And this radio, along with the AwardWorks EAR10WH, these two I would get in Christmas of 2022. And right at the day of Christmas. So, similarly to how I got good birthday presents in 2022, I can also go to Christmas presents as well. And also another one, the Midland WR850, specifically the version 16 of the radio. Now, the way that the WR850 was packaged, it would either be with the radio on its own or the radio with a rechargeable charger. And as for what I got here, I just chose to get just the radio itself. Since I like to have all my handhelds all at one place here, and for all of them to also be used solely on batteries. Well, even with the WR850 having the option of a rechargeable battery, but I just choose to use it with plain batteries. And as I said, with that and that, this I owned in my birthday of March of 2022. And just so I can also continue with another water radio that I purchased in that time period, the Oregon Scientific WR8000. And so this, and that I would all get for my birthday in March of 2022. So that makes it 4 radios that I purchased at that time. And so too, this water radio here, the Midland WR-30, and this being the predecessor to the Midland WR-850, as it's right next to it. This I also purchased for my birthday, but not in 2022, but instead in this year, as of this being recorded, that being 2024. And I've actually uploaded 2 videos of the first 2 weeks that I've owned this, starting on my birthday, which by the way was in March of 2024. One video where, by the way, this is for a weekly test, by the way. Basically test alerts that go off every Wednesday around the hours of 11 a.m. to noon. But yeah, one video where for that happening on my birthday, this didn't go off, but let me just say this here. Nothing to do with the radio itself, everything to do with me. Because like, I had just gotten through the first couple of minutes of me just unboxing the 74-10 out. And I either didn't think to set it up or didn't set it enough to where it would actually go off for an alert like this. So yeah, that one video on the first day that I had this on my birthday didn't go off for a weekly test. It would be by the week after for another video that I would also upload, to where I did actually set it probably to where it actually went off for a weekly test, as it should be, to guarantee that it can actually go off for water words the same way that all of these, and even the Midland 74-10, also can. And I kind of blame this on the way you have to set the 74-50, because to put it in just a short sentence here, with my experience of programming the 74-50, it is quite a process. It is quite a process to set up the 74-50 and make sure everything's right so it can go off for a required weekly test or a severe thunderstorm warning or something. So, I just wonder, Midland, what were you thinking with how the 74-50's functionality goes? But aside from that, as for when I would own my 74-50, the one I'm pointing to right now, this I first owned on my birthday of 2024. And when I say that I've owned a radio on my birthday of 2022 or my birthday of 2024, that really just means that I would first own that water radio in the day of March 20th of that year, which by the way is my birth date, if you didn't know. And yeah, that just about goes for all the water radios, at least for what I currently own and use. As far as what they are and when I own them. Now, I may also go into water radios that I used to use but don't use anymore. And they'll all go as follows. So, I'd already mentioned on how I would only use my Midland 74-10 for only a few months because of its issues with its low speaker, along with its screw wheel glitching, along with its clock also glitching and lagging and freezing. And that'll get it to a point to where I would replace this radio with that, started in February of 2021, after that I'd previously used this from July of 2020, even though I owned this in April of the year 3 years back, to February of 2021. I'd also mentioned that I'd used to have my first RadioShack 12-247B started in early 2022, but that it had an issue with its low speaker, similarly to the 74-10, to where it would be to where 2 years after that, to April of 2024, that I would replace it with a second RadioShack 12-247B that I have here. And also get into these other water radios as well. So the Midland 74-100, specifically the version 6 model that I first owned, started in the summer of 2021. And around that time to October of 2022 would be when I'd use it. But it would also be by October of 2022 that, well, something would go wrong on my 74-100. And that being with its adapter port, with how it would be by October of 2022, around after the 1 year that I've used it for, that the adapter port just stopped working at some moment in time. So, in other words, I can't use any adapter whatsoever to get it to work with that. Now, as for powering a 74-100 with its 9-volt battery, that it still works with. But as for using it with an adapter, it doesn't anymore ever since that happened. in October of 2022 when it would eventually stop working. And so as a result, I would stop using my 74-200. So that's quite unfortunate. Now, for these other water radios, they haven't been broken, but I would stop using them just because I just didn't want to use them. That being the RadioShack 12-245, 12-246, and 12-248. All three of those being handheld radios from RadioShack. And for each of them, I'd first owned them starting in early 2022. But it would be by some point to the year after, 2023, that I thought, well, not really using these radios too much, so why do I have them hanging on the wall if I'm not using them? And so in 2023, that was the kind of thought that I had. Well, specifically early 2023, when I had that thought. When I wasn't really using the 12-245, 246, and 248 much. As is me using these handhelds, excluding this one since I didn't have it at the time, more than the 245, 246, and 248 that I used to use. So, yeah, just by some point in early 2023, I just didn't really want to use them since, well, I just didn't want to use them just because.
Okay, so for this water radio here, I didn't mention this in the video as I had filmed it, so that's what I'm filling in with this audio clip for. And that water radio is the Midland WR850, a small pocket water radio, which, by the way, has no screen. But then again, the RadioShack 12-245, 12-246, and 12-248 also don't have a screen. But anyway, the Midland WR850, I had owned that in Christmas of 2021. Then, just like the same thing with the three other radios that it said, the RadioShack 12-245, 246, and 248. By early 2023, I thought that since I wasn't really using the Midland WR850 too much during that time, that I'd just stop using it. And so that goes for the WR850 along with the three other RadioShack radios that it said that by early 2023, it would be the point to where I would stop using those handheld radios since I simply wasn't using them a lot at the time. Now, we're going to go over to this last water radio that I've owned before we get into where I got all of my water radios at.
Now, going to a radio that there's a good chance you don't know of, or there's a great chance you don't know of, but it's this. You found your 300 WB. Now, this isn't technically a water radio. It's really more of a pocket radio. Really just more of a pocket radio of the other pocket radios out there. And trust me, there's multiple that have AM and FM radio bands. But this also has the water band as well, like the kind of water band for NOAA water radio.
Today's low temperature of 46 degrees occurred at 6:30 a.m.
And that this plain pocket radio also has an alert function where, just like these radios here, and also this one, this radio would go off for an alert if I were to press and hold on this for it to enable the alert function. But yeah, just like these radios along with that. This radio goes off if it senses a 1050 hertz tone, like this.
This is the National Weather Service Office at Greenville, Spartanburg.
And so, if it gets that tone, well, it'll simply go off for it that it worked. But yeah, this I had. And this I got in the summer of 2020. So right around the time that I just got an adapter for my 74 to 10. It was also the time that I would be having this as my pocket radio, and also just my startup to owning water radios in 2020, along with that in later months. And similarly to, well, not just similarly, but just like what I'd said about the RadioShack 12-245, 12-246, and 12-248, there's simply just some point in time that I just thought, since I have all of these radios here, what do I have this one for? And so, well, I do still have it, obviously, but not really using it anymore these days, where I have all of these water radios around. But I will say that this is at least one of the early radios that I owned in my first year, at least my first year of being a EAS emergency alert system / water radio enthusiast in 2020. And so this radio, the Midland 74 to 10, the Von WR300 WB, and the Midland WR400 would be my first 3 water radios that I own in the year of 2020. But yeah, we've gotten into what water radios that I own or have owned, and also when I got them on. Now I may also get into where I got them, as in where I got all these radios. So, as for where I got all of my water radios at, in terms of the sites I'd get them on, out of all of the water radios that I currently own, or have owned, or have used, a good majority of them I purchased on eBay, 2 on Mercari, and then another 2 on Amazon. So, as for the Emerson EWR850, my first and second RadioShack 12-247B, my Midland WR-30, and 74 to 10, my Midland WR-120, Midland 74 to 100, RadioShack 12-245, 246, and 248, RadioShack 12-991, 12-250, 12-249, Recom R1650C, the WordWorks EAR10, specifically EAR10WH, the Oregon Scientific WR8000, Midland 74 to 50, Midland HH54, RadioShack 12-259, and 12-254. That was a lot. All of those I purchased through eBay. For the RadioShack 12-262 and 12-240, which again, I both bought from South Missouri Sirens, the user, I got them over on Mercari. And for the Midland WR400 and Von WR300 WB, I purchased on Amazon. So, yeah, as I said, a good majority of water radios that I've either currently owned or have used, I purchased them from eBay for a good majority of them. And only 2 select ones from Mercari, and also another 2 select ones from Amazon. So, yeah, that's for where I got all my water radios at. Now, as for the water radios that I currently use, as of recording this on October of 2024, I'm going to also get into how, in terms of what no water radio stations I use for each of these water radios for. So here I got these 2 county maps, and which I actually drew myself. You can thank me in the comments for them. And these county maps are counties of the no water radio stations that I can receive for each one of the counties that they have. So like you got all of these counties around western and central North Carolina, me being over here, along with northwestern South Carolina, this county in northeastern Georgia, that being Hart, Johnson County in northeastern Tennessee, and then these counties in southern and southwestern Virginia. All of these counties are the stations that are on here. Now, for the stations that are on this map, for these I have them by letter acronyms, and I'll list the acronyms as I go on with them. But, for this here, this is WXL56, WWF60, WXL70, WXJ21, WNG588, WNG538, KHC27, KJY85, and WXL42. By the way, you can actually hear my 2 dogs down there, I'm pretty sure. But anyways, just ignore that for now. All these stations that I've mentioned here, their award are on these 2 maps that I have here. Now these 2 maps are for 2 different areas. So I may also add that I live in 2 families, if that's something you wanted to know. But I say that because that's for what I have these 2 maps for. So where I am here right now in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, for my townhouse, and also this here in Cabarrus, North Carolina, right at the border of it, border of Mecklenburg, but just mostly Cabarrus. One of my 2 families. But yeah, this here is where I am right now with all of these, and this room, and this townhouse I'm in. And so this here is where I am in Mecklenburg County. And around here, WXL70, KHC27, and KJY85 are my 3 local stations, which, by the way, also serve my county, along with Gaston County as well, which neighbors Mecklenburg to its west. But yeah, these stations are my primary stations, my 3 primaries for no water radio. Now, KHC27, as of filming this in October of 2024, is off the air. As a matter of fact, they've been off the air for about a month or so. Even have 2 videos explaining the whole thing on them. So, as of now, WXL70 and KGY85, in terms of what I have for any main stations that aren't off the air, or what I currently have as of the filming of this video. And so, for WXL70, KGY85, and KC27, I said would be these three main stations for me. But that will also be these three stations that I use across most of my radios. And so, for this radio, this radio, this radio, this radio, this one, and this one, I use for WXL70. For this, and this, I use for KGY85. And for this, and that, they would be on KC27. But I say would be because, as I mentioned, as of filming this in October 2024, KC27's off the air. So until they're eventually on the air, if they ever are, I'd temporarily put this radio, and this radio, which would usually be on KC27, to KGY85 until KC27 is eventually on the air. But yeah, that's for my desktop radios, for what I currently use them for across my three main stations. Now, as for my handhelds here, these handhelds here, I can pretty much use them for whatever station I want to. And it doesn't even have to be these stations that are on these two maps, which again, I hand drew myself. So, for these handhelds here, I can pretty much use them for whatever I want to use them for in terms of a no-water radio station. But let's say if I were to just have them on the shelf, not really using them for any other kind of station outside of my three main ones of WXL70, KGY85, and KC27. If I were to just have them over here, it'd be one of those three main stations, depending on the radio that I choose to have them on. And yeah, that just about does it for this video. Going through my whole collection of water radios that, as of October of 2024, I either currently use and have, or used to use, or used to have. I've said all of them. Across the 17 radios that I currently use now, and also the few other water radios that I either used to use or used to have that I don't have or use anymore. And throughout this video, I've gotten through the what, where, and when I got my water radios, along with my way of using them for no water radio, for these stations that I can receive in the area I'm in for these. And I may also say that this very video here that you're watching right now is as part of a 2-year anniversary to my channel, ever since I've been uploading in October of 2022, or late 2022. Now, I'd already talked about and discussed on the water radios that I owned before late 2022 when I started my channel. Even going to as far as 2021, I had this, and that, with this being my very first water radio. So I already had experience with using water radios even before I started this channel in late 2022. But me just having a YouTube channel where I have all these water radios here, and how I use no water radio and what I've got on it, that was not really a thing that would come to mind to me before wait to 2022. But now I have this video, being a 2-year anniversary to a channel that I've not only collected and owned No Water Radios for, but also got into how it's used and what's happening and the products and the words and all that with No Water Radio. To this channel, that's been happening for 2 years and uploading for 2 years. Well, even though I started in 2021, but I never uploaded anything up until the year after to 2022. And I say that to anybody that's been viewing my channel that I've been uploading for 2 years for so far, to any of you viewers that have been watching my videos for as long as I've been uploading for, or to any of the recent viewers to this channel, either if you're viewing this after its upload, maybe even way after, I say huge thanks. A big thanks to what you did as a viewer, along with what all these water radios and these have gotten me to, having this whole YouTube channel where I not only collect No Water Radios, but also, if I'd like to, get to record on what's interesting to me, to record over No Water Radio, like products or alerts or stuff happening with No Water Radio stations I receive, or some other thing. For 2 years, I've done all. This video here, my first ever water radio collection, is just another. So yeah, 2-year anniversary for this video. And well, since it's just at its end now for what I've already said, which is a lot, I say take care, have a good one, and also good conversation.